So I just want to. The Dominion, I think it was the superior show. I'm just going to talk about my favorite 4 matches from the show, which is first we're going to start with Kushida versus Will Ospreay. This wasn't as good as their first match, but it was still great. I th- I'll get to this later, maybe in a different podcast. I want to talk about who the best wrestler of the year is so far. Cause I think I'm spoiler alert. I think 2 of them were in this match. Kushida and Will Ospreay. Um, I went 4 1/4 on this match. I thought it was good. I thought it was great, really. The Kawada strikes that they they did to each other, the kicks to the head. A lot of Will Ospreay's striking has gotten very good. The Yeah, I thought the striking was on point. Kushida working the arm. I do love Kushida. It's amazing to me that a guy whose main offensive uh, strategy is limb work on an arm is such a good babyface, because it's usually a heel type of thing, and sometimes it can be boring and repetitive. I think, but with Kushida, it always feels dynamic and fresh and impactful when he goes after the arm. There was a spot here where Ospreay just beat a 20 count. He came back into the ring, and Kushida springboarded and drop kicked him right in the head. I thought it was a lot of great stuff. They did stuff that showed their familiarity early on, where they would counter each other's counters. I thought Kushida and Ospreay, they both had great facial expressions when they were selling. Ospreay did the no-handed hand spring kick again, which is great. People, I'll get into the Ospreay hates, Ospreay haters, and Ospreay hate later when I talk about who I think the wrestlers of the year are. But yeah, I thought this was great. Their first match was better. They'll probably have a better one at Wrestle Kingdom. This might be the Wrestle Kingdom junior heavyweight match. We'll see. But Kushida wins. It's not Will's time yet, which I loved. I really thought Ospreay was gonna win this match. But Kushida he's the ace of the juniors, and he's probably gonna win the Super J Cup, and I love him. Both these guys are great. Shibata Nagata, what a story. Um, this might be the feud of the year. It's amazing. Shibata versus the at least as Voices of Wrestling calls it, the New Japan dads. That's why I'm plugging Voices of Wrestling. I don't care. I listen to them. They do good work over there. They get reviews up. They do good stuff. Yeah, I mean, they're basically the old generation of the New Japan main eventers. You got your Tenzan, Kojima, Nagata, Nakanishi, but he's not really a factor. So, when Nagata won the title, what was it, Dontaku last month? It was very surprising, unexpected, because you just figured Shibata would just run through all the old guys, but he got stopped by the leader of the old guys, Nagata, and this was essential to the story, because after that, Shibata had to, I mean, uh, he learned respect. Nagata was literally teaching him respect throughout this feud, and Shibata had to overcome Nagata to win not just the Never title, but the respect of the older generation and their blessing. And when he finally penalty kicked Nagata and pinned him, uh, it felt like a huge moment. Even though it was like the title he just had a month ago, but him winning it in this way just felt like a huge deal. And then the other old guys came out, the legends, whatever you want to call them, and they all congratulated Shibata. They raised his hand. It was like a real moment. A commentator was crying, and I really felt it. This was Shibata's coming out party, and for years the Western fans have been like, well, why isn't Shibata main eventing the Dome? When is Shibata gonna win G1? I'm not saying Shibata's gonna win G1, but what I will say is he's gonna get pushed as a main eventer now. I don't know where it's gonna fit, when I look at all the outcomes from the show, but he's the never champion, so can he go after higher belts? Who knows? But the G1, it's gonna be interesting. I don't think he's gonna win. I don't even know if he'll be in the finals, but he's gonna make a splash, and he made a splash a couple years back when he beat Tanahashi and Nakamura, but still didn't make the finals somehow. But he's gonna make a splash again here. He's gonna be. Look, New Japan needs more variety in their main event scene. They got Okada, they still got Naito. Tanahashi will come back. Omega, now Elgin, which I guess I'll talk about that match now. I really like this ladder match. I think it's gonna be divisive. There's people who they don't want this type of match in Japan, but there was so much novelty to seeing. I mean, it was still two Canadians wrestling in a ladder match, or two gaijin, but man, it was great. I just thought a lot of creative stuff here, like the springboard sunset flip powerbomb from outside to into the ring. Omega did to Elgin, and just the superplex off the ladder. That's not really original, but it was in Japan. I mean, they flipped out about it. I can't remember the last time I heard a crowd react to a superplex like that. It was because it was in front of the Osaka crowd. There was real novelty because the way they reacted to everything, it was happening for the first time. It's like it never happened. I know a lot of the people in the crowd probably have seen a ladder match, whether it be on tape or they went to a DDT show or whatever. But it was in New Japan. It felt fresh, and I don't want them to do a bunch of these types of matches from now on. But now I will say the other thing people probably said about is all the interference, which I get, but I get less in this match. Because it is a ladder match. And Michael Elgin did get to Superman his way through a couple people. He beat up Adam Page and Yujiro. But just a quick note, thank God the Briscoes won those tag belts, huh? Thank God for that. Anyway, but I thought, they told a nice story at the end with all the babyfaces coming to help. Captain New Japan and Yoshitatsu couldn't look any more like geeks. They got the Young Bucks to squash them, which, I mean, they should have. I mean, Yoshitatsu's not been very good since he came back, even though I'm a fan of his. He's a prelim guy now, that's just what it is. So, and then Ricochet coming and doing the big spot at the end, and then Elgin, the spot where he just broke the handcuffs and climbed the ladder, and, he didn't climb it, he tipped the ladder over, and poured Kenny Omega out onto everybody. And then the crowd came unglued when every time Elgin was climbing and got close to the title, the crowd came unglued in a way that is very surprising, considering Elgin's been with this company for less than a year, and, he's not Hiroshi Tanahashi, he's not Japanese, but he's fucking over, and that's great, more variety. So, so this time not only did he come close, but the first time he touched the title, the crowd gasped. You could hear, they were like, holy shit, he's gonna, and nobody was in the ring, so there was no one to stop him. They knew, they could feel this was the finish. So, after all the ladder bumps and table spots and all the crazy hijinks, Elgin brought the title down in the fucking place. They came unglued for it. It was great. And I gotta say, I think the Western audience is gonna be lower on this match than I think the Japanese crowd. They ate this up. I mean, it was like a 30-minute match. It felt like a true epic. That's what they were going for, That was definitely what Omega and Elgin were going for. But it worked in that building. It worked, and I think the Western audience, a lot of us are gonna be like, but why we wanted more counter wrestling, and you don't get that in a ladder match. You know, I love counter wrestling. We got it in the main event, that's for sure, but not here. This is about big spots, big bumps. Um, and I thought it was great. You know, I thought it was better than the ladder match they had at Money in the Bank, which I didn't even talk about. But I thought that match was very good. And Cesaro, I thought was especially awesome in that match. Um, but yeah, I mean, in this match, I, I'm just happy for Elgin. That's all I gotta say. Let's move on to the main event. Uh, this was excellent. I mean, this was a match of the year contender. I think probably gonna place high in the match of the month. Voices of Wrestling does a match of the month thing also, which you can check out. It's really fun. And it's a good way to like catch up on all the best wrestling that if you haven't seen it, you can see it all over there. Um, yeah, this was. I mean, Okada and Naito have always had excellent chemistry. The first title match they ever had was like a 4 3/4 star match, and this was like when Okada had just beaten Tanahashi for the first time, and Naito was like, I think this was Naito's first main event ever, you know. So, uh, that match was excellent, and this was excellent too. I mean, this is all the counters from the Destino into the Tombstone. I mean, they did things that I thought they would do, but then they did even more. I mean, Naito hit like a version of the Destino out of the Tombstone, and then he went for like a full one, and Okada can't reverse that, and then hit the Tombstone. But he didn't no sell the Destino. He was dazed for sure. And man, I couldn't believe Okada hits the Rainmaker, and Naito kicks out. I couldn't believe it. I thought that was the finish, even though I was sure Naito was gonna win this match. Once he hit the Rainmaker, I was like, that's over. Only Tanahashi's ever kicked out of this fucking thing, and Naito kicked out. And you know what? Even though even though the finish came shortly after with Okada hitting 4 more Rainmakers, he hit him with a lot of Rainmakers. He killed Naito. It was the only way to take the title from him. Naito kicking out of the Rainmaker shows me that he's a top guy. Because they just wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do shit like that if they didn't have huge plans for Naito, you know. And you could say, well, what bigger plan could there be than retaining the title against Okada? And that's a fair question. But they are trying to establish, even though Okada won this match and won the title back only 2 months later, only 2 months after Naito won it, Naito's a top guy. I mean, he will be treated as such, because they don't just give this title to anybody, you know. Since I've been watching New Japan, which I started in 2013, but then I went back and watched the 2012, the Rise of Okada, basically. So let's say the Okada era, right? Let's just call it that, the modern era. Before Naito got to this belt, there have only been 3 men that have held it: Okada, Tanahashi, and Styles. It's been those 3 for 4 years. Now I know they don't have weekly television, right, or whatever. But think of the 2012. Let's think in WWE how many people have held. Let's just say the WWE title. Let's just not even count the world title. Okay, let's just think. Since 2012, who was champion? Now I'm just trying to go off the top of my head. CM Punk. He lost it to The Rock, who lost it to Cena, who lost it to Bryan, who lost it to Orton, that's right, who lost it to Bryan, who lost it to Orton, who lost it to, then Orton unified the belts, then lost it to Bryan. Bryan gave it up. Cena won it again, who lost it to Lesnar, who, well, I guess lost it to Rollins, right? And then Rollins held it for a while, so that was something. And then, oh man, then we get into this clusterfuck with Reigns, Sheamus, Reigns, Triple H, Reigns, Rollins and Ambrose. There we go. I think I nailed that. Just going off the top of my head. So kudos to me. But there was a lot of names there, is what I'm saying. There was more. There was more than 3. And I know Styles, Tanahashi, and Okada dropped it to each other a bunch, but it was more than 3. And now even 4 with Naito. You know, like it's still so Naito winning this. It's still Naito's still gonna be a top guy. I'm not worried about Naito. Even though Los Ingobernables lost every match, I think that's just part of the story. Now, I thought Naito would retain here and then Okada to win G1 and then win the title at Wrestle Kingdom. Maybe Gato's thinking, Okada's won G1 twice, let's do a different story. Maybe Naito wins G1. It's kind of a weird dynamic, though, to have the heel chase the babyface champion. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna do Tanahashi and Okada again. That'd be weird. I still think the main event of the Dome still has to be Okada versus Naito. But, that being said, I guess, we'll have to see what happens here with Naito. I mean, this match was excellent. A match of the year contender, match of the night, worthy main event. It was all these things. It was a classic IWGP title match. There was no interference, no bullshit. Naito beat the hell out of Okada. Okada fought his way back. He countered a lot of great counter wrestling. And just an excellent hot finish with all the reversals, the Destinos, Tombstones, Rainmakers, just really great stuff. I can't. People say New Japan doesn't make stars, and I think this year is showing people that that's just not true, or that they don't pull the trigger early enough. My friend Benel Hermosen will say that. And I think this year has just shown that that's just not true. They can make stars. I think they're doing it with Naito, Omega, and Shibata all this year. And Elgin too, I think. So anyway, I think the next podcast I do will be about the wrestler of the year so far. Take it easy.